Retro Rob's Gaming Videos.
Hey, Rob here, and we're going to talk about the Atari 7800. Well, we're going to talk about the Atari 7800's controllers. These in the US, these in these in the US, and these over the big pond in Europe. Which one's the best to play your Atari 7800 games with? This is going to be an opinion piece, not fact-based. But first, some facts. The Atari 7800 was originally going to be released in 1984. Actually, I think it was going to be released for Christmas 1984. They announced it in May. Many Atari players were very happy because we were coming off the Atari 5200, which had been a massive flop, thanks to its amazingly bad controllers, which you can see elsewhere in the YouTube universe and on my site, in fact. I think I've covered them before. At least I covered them on Guys, Games, and Beer. But anyway, we were facing, Atari was facing, I'm an Atari guy. We're on the same team. I got the first billion. No. Anyway, Atari was facing just a lot of competition. ColecoVision had come out with a machine that was graphically superior to the Atari 2600. It also played games really well. It was actually a very nice system. Intellivision had also come out with a graphically superior system. Games were kind of questionable, but actually it had seen pretty wide adoption. It was a pretty good game system as well. Atari needed something to lead the way, and the answer to that was the Atari 7800, with really great graphics. Basically had been redesigned, slimmed down, and made into a really decent gaming system. Unfortunately, 1985, Jack Tramiel had bought Atari, and Jack Tramiel had decided that video gaming was not an important part of Atari's marketing strategy, and that computers were the future. So he basically redirected Atari to be basing all their work on bringing Atari computers and the Atari ST to the market. So the Atari 7800 didn't manage to get released until 1986 in the US and 1987 in Europe. In my opinion, had it been released when it was supposed to be released, it probably would have done a great job of keeping Atari in control of the video gaming market in its day. Now, that's just opinion, it's hearsay, but I think that it was such a good system with the full support of Atari, it would have stood a pretty good chance at least. But as it is, history is what it is, and the Atari 7800 was doomed to, while being, in my opinion, Atari's best system, also not a huge selling system, although it didn't do terrible. But anyway, in the US, if you bought an Atari 2600 brand new, you got this controller. This controller is actually a redesign of the Atari 2800's controller, as it was called in Japan. The Atari 2800, if you want to see one, actually was actually brought into the U.S. under Sears as the Telegames 2, which I did a video on this station. And the controller looked very close to this. However, it was a little bit less refined. The buttons were a little more sticky-outy. And the other nice, actually it had one nice feature that this doesn't have. The controller could also be used as a paddle. Pretty dang neat. So the paddle was inside here. Also, it was a little bit shorter, and it had a little, just had this little topper end, and it was, because of that, it made it hard to control. This control, however, was not much better. Hand cramping was a serious problem with this guy. It was a worse problem with this guy. It puts a lot of force when you're playing on the sides of your hands. And then combined with firing the buttons from here, it is a very, very uncomfortable long-term experience. It's okay for a few games, but over time, it becomes very, very uncomfortable. So imagine my chagrin when I found out that the Europeans got this. Yes, it's a Nintendo controller ripoff. There's a Nintendo controller. It's a ripoff brand one, but it's the same dimensions as the original. and you look, so it's similar size, similar button layout. But if you look at the buttons, notice how far apart the Atari buttons are. And this matters because you can feel it when you're playing. You have to stretch a little bit further to fire this button, fire the secondary button, as opposed to a Nintendo button where you can just roll off. There's, they're right next to each other. It does make a difference in gameplay, and it's a difference you feel. In addition, here, let's take this off, because you can use this without this little joystick piece in here. In addition, the buttons are a lot more mushy, and there's not a whole lot of tactile feedback. Whole lot of tactile feedback when you're using this. And this is actually a new controller. This was new old stock. So this is about as new as it gets. And it just kind of feels really mushy. Versus this, that is a very exact controller. And people always lost these little toppers. So the question is, which one wins out between these two if you have a choice? I would say that given a choice, this is better than this. This wins. However, I've seen these as high as $40, and they're not worth $40. You can get them for around $25, and probably less than $30 shipped, and that's what you should be paying for them. You should not. I've seen some really high prices going on eBay for these because Americans believe that they're very rare. They are not. They're very common. They're not as common as like this guy, but they're a fairly common controller. So, yes. Go ahead, play your 7800 with this if you absolutely must use a gamepad. But if you don't care about brand, go ahead and use a Genesis controller. It's a far superior controller to this, and it's way cheaper. So the Genesis controller wins. No, not really. This one. Thank you very much for watching. If you want more of these versus videos, let me know about it. I know I haven't been doing a lot of these lately. Largely because I'm running out of things to fight each other. I brought you into this world, Commodore. I will take you out of it.